Hey, welcome everyone to episode 6 of Underrated Underdogs. 6 episodes in, guys. This is your host Chizzy coming at you. In virtual studio, we've got Jen and we've got Brandon. Brandon, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm good. 6 episodes. This ties my longest running podcast so far out of two
Hey,
attempts. So this is we're on pace to break a record.
nice. And Jen, how are you doing, bro?
I'm doing all right. Cowboys keep winning, and love all the hate that I'm getting from everybody.
What hate are you getting? Is there a lot of hate mail coming your way, or is it just Dallas Cowboy hates in general?
Just the Cowboys hates in general. Like it happens every single year. You kind of get used to it after a while. But hey, at the end of the day, if Mari Cooper wants a championship and we got the team for it, I hope they go for the ring.
Cowboys fans get Cowboy hate every year because you win your first game and you claim you're going to the Super Bowl.
You're just mad because the boys might drop a 50 burger on you this weekend because you have no cornerbacks and Mac Jones can't throw for anything past 10 yards.
That's shots coming at your boy, Brandon. Are you going to defend him? Are you going to defend his honor?
I mean, I don't see an issue with him until the red zone. I have nothing to say about his ability to finish in the red zone, but he can dice it in the middle of the field. Unfortunately, that doesn't get points though.
All
Maybe you
right.
should pick up the kicker for New England since he's going to be kicking a lot of field goals. But then again, he does miss a lot too, so that's also another possibility there.
I mean, speaking of field goals, there were a ton of them missed this week, but we will get to that in a later topic. We've got some really exciting stuff to go over, but before we jump in, Jen, how about you hit us with the bets from last week? How did we do?
We did okay. I think we came out 3-1. There was a lot of close games, but then again, um, clutch win with the Arizona Cardinals covering their 5.5. Obviously, we had the Cowboys at 7. We didn't we expected it to be sort of a blowout, but that interception for a touchdown at the end of the game just kind of threw some icing on the cakes. And yeah, we had Tampa Bay as well. They covered theirs. They essentially stomped on the Dolphins, which looks like it's a dumpster fire, just like Carson Wentz and the Colts.
Ooh, this guy is coming with spice for Carson Wentz, and we're not even at the Colts topic yet. Yeah, as usual, to get our premium bets, just check us out at underrated FTFW. That again is underrated FTFW on Twitter. Oh, sorry, on Instagram. And yeah, you can get our premium bets there. So onto the topics that we have. One of the biggest news in football this week was Jon Gruden has resigned from the Raiders head coaching job. Gruden resigned this week after video images resurfaced of him using racist slash homophobic and misogynistic language in emails sent a couple years ago. This was while he was working as an analyst on ESPN. So this leaves the 3-2 Raiders without a head coach. So I will go to you, Brandon. What do you make of this whole situation?
First things first, I will acknowledge that I may be the one eating Popeye's biscuits. No team that's lost their head coach typically stands a really good chance midseason. Fingers crossed that the interim head coach can step up, but I'm not feeling too confident about that. Um, I'm not defending Jon Gruden in any way, shape, or form, but how is he the only one that got exposed? There was 650,000 emails in the course of an investigation that was unrelated, realistically, to Jon Gruden, because I'm pretty sure he was working at ESPN at the time. Um, but he's the only one that got singled out. So somehow, some way, in this investigation, which was the Washington football team's investigation of workplace misconduct, he's the only one that gets in trouble. I'm not shocked he was forced to resign. I think the NFL is trying to make a statement about the way that they treat incidents like racism, misogynistic behavior, homophobic behavior, especially with an openly gay player on his roster. That's a hard one to come back from. My only problem is the entire investigation stemmed from the Washington football team organization and their sexual misconduct as an organization, which is any of the senior leaders on that squad, including Dan Snyder. And for some reason, none of that information has ever come to light. There's been, multiple women that have complained about it, which caused the investigation in the first place. And somehow Jon Gruden is a scapegoat and sort of a decoy. It's like, here, ignore the fact that we only got a slap on the wrist, $10 million fine. This guy made a gay slur in an email, which on severity is obviously not right, but I think I would take the 100 accusations of sexual misconduct more seriously instead of just throwing one head coach under the bus. Again, I'm not defending him. I don't think he should have a job after this, but I feel like there's a lot that's being missed, and I feel like there's a lot of covering up going on that everybody just seems to be overlooking.
Jen, what's your take on this, Matt, on this issue?
I think obviously it's a bad situation, and he deserved to get fired. But I think the bigger part is that you know the NFL is actually in a way trying to help the Raiders because obviously, as everybody know, that the reason why he took the job is because he signed a 10-year $100 million contract with an option to purchase a minority stake in the Raiders. Um, Obviously, kind of have to dig a little bit deeper into that, but his resignation slash being fired, gets the Raiders off the hook for about 60 million, and don't have to pay up minority stake, and take him being an actual owner of a team. So I think that's why he's the number one. But just going back to what Brandon said, 650,000 emails. There's going to be a lot of people out there that's going to be either fired or resigned. That's going to be they're never going to see a light of day on a field or any sorts. That's going to happen soon.
Okay, and I guess bringing this back to football, Jen, what move do you see the Raiders making from for the rest of the season? Seeing as they started the season so hot and losing their head coach, where do they go from here?
So I think they might win a couple games, but they're essentially out of the playoff contentions. They had a pretty okay run. What's most likely going to happen is that just from the perspective, if I was the GM, which I'm not, but theoretically, if I am, I give an extension to David Carr. Not a $40 million a year extension, but extend him for another year or two, just to see how he's doing. Because at the end of the day, like there's not going to be a lot of teams out there that's going to be cutting their starting quarterbacks unless Carolina decides to unload Sam Darnold, which I don't think that would be a good fit either. Or Big Ben, but Big Ben looks like he spends more time on Brazzers than anything else now. So at the end of the day, I think they're going to extend them. They're going to try to keep the core of the team, and they're going to come out as a success story. 2-3 years down the road, but this year they're done. And Brandon, I hope you enjoy those Popeye biscuits because they are going to be dry as hell.
They just got to win enough games to make a playoff spot. I didn't bet them to win the division, which already essentially would have lost, but they just have to get a playoff spot. Fingers crossed that the interim head coach can get some buy-in, win some games, and I won't have to do that.
All right, win some games, Raiders, to avoid Brandon eating some biscuits, or lose them if you want to see him, eat those Popeyes biscuits. I kind of want to see it. Yeah, so I guess moving on to some of the games this week, we had an action-packed week filled with some great football. Um, but one of the more interesting games of this week, at least one of the games that I found most interesting this week, was the Colts versus Ravens games. This was on Monday night, and Lamar Jackson looked amazing in this one. The game started off pretty rough for the Ravens. They fell down 22-3 to start. But then from that point on, it pretty much became the Lamar Jackson show. Over the past couple of years, Lamar has received criticisms about his ability to throw the ball, ability to pass the ball, and the Colts dared him to throw the ball this game, especially when once they went up big, and he responded in a big way. He ended up the game. He ended the game throwing for 442 yards. Um, and 4 touchdowns and completed over 86% of his passes. So, Brandon, my question to you here is what letter grade would you give Lamar Jackson for this performance?
I don't even think that's a question. Is an A++ an option? He balled out. There's been a lot of criticism about defenses figuring Lamar out. And he keeps getting asked if defenses have figured him out because a lot of people for the first few years of his career thought he was just a one-trick pony, like a one look and run guy. But he proved a lot of people wrong. And I was a little bit more emotional into this game because I had a parlay on it, which included the Ravens winning by 5.5. So when we were getting into the fourth quarter and they were down by 16 points, I was pretty stressed out about that bet hitting. But he balled out in the second half of the game. Obviously, they had a rough start. But like I said, everyone said he was just a one-trick pony, one-look and run guy. They dared him to throw the ball, and he rose up to the challenge. He threw for, like you said, over 440 yards with a completion rate that's astronomical. 86% completion is rare to see on a low yardage game. It was insane. And he didn't rush a lot. To me, it looks like he's evolving because what I saw the last game and the last couple of games is he had opportunities to run and he chose to throw. Like you would have seen Lamar in his first 2 years run those specific plays, but instead he chose to take the extra look, find the open guy, and get the throw down the field. So it looks to me like he's evolving into more of an all-around QB. He can run, obviously we know that, and now we know he can throw. The biggest problem I've had with Lamar is his consistency over the course of an entire season, but I'm hoping this is a trajectory because then he's going to be easily one of the top quarterbacks.
So Jen, I assume you agree with Brandon on that. On the letter grade there for that game. Is this something that we can expect to see more from Lamar? Do you think he's going to regress back to the mean in terms of his passing ability?
No, I think I think this is going to be like that one highlight of the season where he's going to be good at throwing. It just seems like empty calories. I know that it's the fourth quarter. It's kind of like they had to do whatever it had to do, but at the end of the day, like his receivers were wide open. You could have get somebody on the street and throw completions like that. I think it was just a complete meltdown of the secondary of the Colts. Carson Wentz kind of looked good out there. Kind of back to sort of like a 2017. Maybe like early 2017 ish. He looked good. I think it was just a total meltdown, and expect the Colts to get some help with their secondary because it just seems like if you give Lamar more time to throw, he's obviously going to make those catches, those passes.
How is it empty calories? They won. They came back and won. It was a comeback. It would have been empty calories if they lost, but they
If
didn't.
you if you look at the game, it just seems like everybody was wide open. It was almost like they were just letting Lamar throw like it was a preseason game. Obviously, they needed help there, and that Lamar identified one of their weaknesses, and he happened to have a good game. But don't expect them to throw for another 400 yards this season.
That's what great players do. They find the weakness and they completely take advantage of it. He saw that obviously the Colts' front defensive line is elite. He wasn't going to get too far rushing. He did have a few attempts, but he wasn't anywhere near a normal Lamar rushing game. He saw the weakness was in the cornerbacks, and obviously they've got an injured cornerback that's in worse shape than Tampa Bay's, but he took advantage of it. Yeah, he could play a harder defense and see less yards. I'm not expecting him to throw for 500 yards with an 85% completion every week, but I think people were daring him to throw the ball. He showed that he could.
Actually, if you just pull up the charts that the NFL have of their advanced stats to see, where Lamar's actually throwing the balls, they're all less than 10 yards, and it's all like pretty wide open. He did hit on that 40 yard, more than 40 yard touchdown pass, but it seems like if he gets some pressure in, he's gonna do a lot more checkdowns than anybody else.
Check down or no check down, man. 10 yards at a time. That's all you got to do. It's 10 yards. It's not like you have to go the whole 100 yards in 4 downs. All you got to do is get 10 yards and 4 downs. That's it.
Exactly. And, the next team that we're going to, or one of the next teams that we're going to talk about, um, routinely goes for that highlight play, instead of moving the chains 10 years at a time, as Brandon alluded to. And the team that I'm talking about is the Chiefs. So the Chiefs and Bills game. If you listen to the last week episode, that was one of the games that we had highlighted for the week. Um, and it was a good game. It was pretty high scoring, so it didn't disappoint in that regard. Um, but this game didn't have the back and forth, the drama, the tough finish that I was hoping to kind of see out of it. The game was over pretty early as KC got blown out 38-2, sorry, 38-20. This leaving the Chiefs falling to 2-3 on the season, and the Bills are rising to 4-1 on the season, being led by their rookie quarterback. So, Brandon, I want to hear from you. What did you see anything from the Bills and Josh Allen this weekend?
Um, exactly what I predicted. First off, last week I had the Bills winning in that game. I didn't have a decided margin like that, but I did have them winning the game. I think they're the better all around team. I don't think they're a better offense, obviously, than the Chiefs. I don't think that they're the best offense in the league. I don't think they're the best defense in the league either, but I think they have a strong balance. They're both elite on either side. Um, and it's exactly the situation that I highlighted a couple weeks ago. Mahomes can't dig them out of every single hole every week. But this is the first time that I've watched a Chiefs game and not felt like they were in it. I feel like even when they're down by 10, 20 points, you always feel like they're going to come back. And that might stem from the Houston game where it all started, but I don't know. Maybe you guys feel differently. There's usually a feeling that the Chiefs will figure it out in the game. If they're down by 10, whatever, they'll come back. Down by 20, they still stand a pretty good chance of coming back. This game didn't feel like that at all. This game felt like the Bills were having their way with the Chiefs' offense and defense. Tyreek didn't go off. Kelsey didn't have too much excitement. It seemed like they figured them out, and I'm hoping it's a trend that continues. But I know we touted this as the AFC Championship game. I don't think it's going to be the case. I think there's a more exciting game we should look forward to that we're not going to get this season, which is the Chargers and the Bills.
Chargers and Bills. That's an interesting lineup. Would love to see that game, but kind of staying with this one. Jen, you were one of the first people to call the Chiefs fall off. I was skeptical when you first brought it up, but have you seen anything from the Chiefs that changes your mind, or do you think that this is pretty much just continue to go downhill for the Chiefs?
It's going to be all downhill from now. They're like the 2020 Cowboys. It's defense absolutely the worst. I mean, they are the absolute worst defense that's out there this season, and you can't put everything on the offense's shoulders because they're going to have off days like what they had last Sunday. Again, this just makes me think that with all the other teams around, the Chiefs is not going to make the playoffs this season. And then they're gonna have to decide on what they're gonna do with Andy Reid, because you know he's like a Mike McCarthy. Like he's gonna put in his work for a set amount of time, just like what he did with Philly, and after that, it's gonna be all downhill from there.
If they short up the defense, they'd be fine. Like if they had an average defense, they'd be in good shape. The problem is they have a terrible defense that's historically bad, worse so than last year's Cowboys, which were also historically bad.
Oh man, whatever they do with that top 5 pick or top 10 pick, whatever their first round pick is, pretty much whatever their picks are for this year, just spend them all on defense. Just everything defense, because that defense absolutely sucks. But over to another game that didn't have much defense, the Chargers versus the Browns. If you were looking for a high scoring game, you didn't need to look any further than the Chargers and Browns game. The game finished with a score of 47-42 in the Chargers' favor, and it seemed like both defenses took the day off. You can imagine with a score like that, Justin Herbert had himself one of his best games as a pro, finishing with over 400 yards and 5 total touchdowns.
This game was fantastic to watch. The NFL casuals that hated on the Patriots game would actually have preferred to watch this game. They should just watch this one instead because it played like a Madden game. Defense was nowhere to be found. There was no shred of anybody trying to defend, which is weird because the Browns have a pretty good defense. It's rated, top 10 in the NFL. It didn't seem to show up against Herbert. I thought this is fantastic. I do love Justin Herbert. Obviously, Jin loves Justin Herbert. He was thinking about buying a Justin Herbert jersey. But what I love about it is these QBs that have been in the league for 4, 5, 6 years, they just keep writing him off. And he just keeps showing up and winning. And it seems like the only thing missing from the Chargers last year was a head coach who knew how to be a head coach. And they seem to have found it. So I loved it, and I loved that the Chargers won, and I loved even more that the Browns lost because I don't really like Baker Mayfield at all. And like I said earlier, I'm excited if we can get a Bills and Chargers matchup. We don't get one this season. Maybe we'll be lucky enough to go in the playoffs because I think that's the two teams that need to be watched this year.
Jen, do you think this Chargers team is good enough to make a deep run into the playoffs? And how far do you think they can make it if they do?
I think this Chargers might make it to the AFC Championship game. I mean, I hate to be Miami now because you had the pick right above Justin Herbert in the draft, and you decided to draft Tua, who's not even on the field with you right now. And Justin Herbert is looking like the next Phillip Rivers, except he's not going to have 40 kids. So they definitely know how to draft, and with the team and down in LA, they're definitely, they got that chip on their shoulders because everybody's talking about how they have no fans. Well, one way to get fans is to get to the AFC Championship game. Although I do think that it'd be nice to see the Bills versus the Cowboys, so we can see Trayvon Diggs against Stephon Diggs. I think that would be a bigger matchup, or more fantastic matchup to watch. But Justin Herbert can get it done. I think all the way until the championship, the NFL, the AFC Championship game, where I think the Bills the Bills is gonna beat them to the Super Bowl.
Brandon, how far do you see this Chargers team going? I know you really like them right now.
I can agree with you. I can see an AFC Championship. Obviously, it's not an easy road to get there, but I could see it happening. I think I would have to agree with Jin that if it did come to an AFC Championship situation with the Chargers and the Bills, it would be a fantastic game. But I think the Bills would come out on top. They are a more well-rounded team. But I do think they're poised for a deep playoff run, and I'd really like to see one.
Nice. I guess moving on to the last game that we're going to be breaking down this week, the Bengals versus the Packers. This was, I want to say, a sad game to watch. Um, both teams combined to miss about five straight field goals. It was probably one of the worst kicking exhibitions I've ever seen in my life. Um, it was one of the lowest scoring games, but Aaron Rodgers and the Packers were able to squeeze out a victory. Brandon, I know you had some money on this game. How nerve wracking was all this was this experience for you?
My blood was boiling. The worst part was I had the Packers at -3, which means I didn't even win in the end. I just pushed it. I just drew, um, and it was not exciting watching a team drive down to the 30-yard line and then miss a field goal 5 times in a row. It was just it was one of the weirder games I've seen. Across the league, there was a ton of missed kicks. There was 12 missed PATs going into Monday, and then obviously there were a couple in the Monday night game. It seemed like everybody's kickers were missing. It didn't it didn't seem to matter. I would chalk the Bengals Packers one up to the wind. It looked pretty windy, but the flags were waving, so I could assume it was super windy, and it seemed to affect the game. But it was very stressful to have a -3 spread and watch kicker after kicker just miss field goals. Even when Evan McPherson kicked that one, he thought he made it and it just went wide. Overall, it was just a brutal game to watch. It should have been a little bit more exciting, but there's a lot of kickers that did a lot of shitty things this weekend.
Yeah, you can say that again. Jin, how did you find this game? What were your key takeaways from this game?
Joe Burrows is trying to kill himself out there. Um, obviously, with everything that's going on with the Bengals, and I think the Bengals also showed a way to to stop the Packers, as well as figure out different ways to beat them. I know that they didn't beat them, but you know Aaron McPherson, he is a rookie kicker. He had his shots. It was just an odd game. But it just seems like the Cincinnati Bengals are pretty legit this year with Joe Burrow, and they might have a shot at making the playoffs, but they need to build Joe Burrow, an indoor facility, as well as upping their equipment, because he is getting killed out there. He's going to take a hit like Daniel Jones did and be concussed for the next 4 weeks.
Did you guys see the interview on Pat McAfee show for Aaron Rodgers Tuesday? Um, Aaron Rodgers talked about the handshake after the game with Joe Burrow, and the one thing he said was he's like, I told him he has to slide if he wants to survive. Uh, that he's just pushing way too much into the play, and he just needs to slide more so he doesn't get injured when he's trying to rush.
Yeah, that's definitely sound advice. You don't want to have your quarterback there, playing running back and trying to slam himself into guys. That's not a recipe for success. We've seen that with Cam. We've seen that with quite a few quarterbacks. You want to take the Tom Brady approach. Maybe not to the extremes that he goes to playing at 44, but don't take as many hits and you'll be able to stretch your career a lot longer than if you were trying to run into every offensive lineman, run into everyone and trot people over. That's not the way forward, guys. I mean,
He also had a season-ending injury last year, so I'd like to think he'd be more cautious going into this year, maybe taking a little more sliding approach. Hopefully, he takes the advice that he was given this weekend. Uh, but pliability, man, it doesn't
yeah,
lie.
true, very, very, very true. I mean, it's worked for Tom Brady. It can work for anyone else. The guy's not athletic at all, but look at him. Um, this we're about to get into one of my favorite parts of today's show because I feel like I have a strong feeling that Jen will fire someone or will at least attempt to fire someone here. Um, the Steelers are 2-3, and Big Ben may have bought himself some time after winning this last Sunday against the Broncos. But the 39-year-old isn't what he once was. Um, and with the slow start to the season, and a tough schedule ahead. They're going to be playing the Ravens twice, the Browns twice. So it's a a bit of a tough schedule ahead. Is it time for the is it time for Pittsburgh to move away from Big Ben? I'll come to you, Jen. Will you find someone?
They should have done that a long time ago. But then again, I think they need to box himself into a bathroom with his Brazzers account. Do his thing for the next 6 hours. Come out and maybe you never know. Maybe he'll get back in shape like that.
He just needs to retire. That's it. None of that. He just needs to retire. Everybody's been too busy calling Tom Brady an old ass man, but he doesn't look like one. Big Ben is an old ass man and plays like one. He can't throw the ball down the field consistently. His entire offense is based around passes that either are behind the line of scrimmage or 2 or 3 yards ahead of the line of scrimmage. And that's exactly what we started to see in late Drew Brees. And Drew Brees retired. So I think he needs to just follow in the footsteps. The problem is all of these quarterbacks of the last 20 years are all living under one man's shadow who doesn't seem to age. So maybe they feel like it's the exact same. Maybe they feel like they can also last until 44. But Big Ben's diet of yoga once a week and a beer a day isn't exactly the same as Tom Brady's diet. And so he's just not going to last as long. He's been hit more aggressively. And obviously, he's had a few more intense injuries. He just needs to call it a career. He's had a great career. The problem is if he keeps playing, it's going to be shadowed by him sucking over the next couple.
Mm. You mean to tell me you look at Big Ben and you don't see a pliable guy? No? Like
Not at all.
I see the peak male physique. Flexibility is just oozing out of the guy.
I mean, if you base it off of this weekend's boxing match, the peak male physique is Tyson Fury, and Big Ben has a roughly the same body shape. So yeah, if you want to base it on that, but he's not playing like it. He's just, like I said, I'm not doubting that he had a great career. He had a fantastic career. It's just over.
Mm.
I think the bigger topic is that Mike Tomlin is facing his first season in which he didn't have a winning record, which may cause him to move on from Big Ben faster because Mike Tomlin's legacy so far has been he's never had a losing season in Pittsburgh, and he's always managed to end up in the plus column. Doesn't look like that's going to happen this year. Maybe that'll change his mind about his quarterback of the future. I know he mentioned he wanted someone experienced. I just don't think Big Ben is that guy.
Big Ben, just what? It's always nice to see great players hang it up when they have just a tiny bit left in the tank, as opposed to when you're kind of forced to retire, and the game just completely moves away from you, and you're kind of just left in the back burner, maybe on the bench, and everyone just knows it's time. It's better to just leave while you're still kind of warm, maybe not completely hot, but just kind of warm.
You want to leave in a situation where the last thing people remember about you is not you suck or you were sitting on the bench. They want to remember a great career. All of these quarterbacks have had fantastic careers. They're just all overshadowed by Tom Brady.
Yeah, absolutely. We have just a little bit of time left, and we are a quarter way through the season. So I really want to squeeze this in. I want to get you guys' early front runners for a few awards. So we're just going to do the Defensive Player of the Year and the MVP. So I'll start with you, Jen, this time. I want to hear who your pick for Defensive Player of the Year is right now.
I gotta say it's Trevon Diggs. He's playing great. I think from the pace he's doing, he's gonna break all sorts of records. And I think he's definitely the front runner now.
Brandon, do you agree with Trayvon Diggs as the defensive player of the year?
I do. Right now, to me, it's Trevon Diggs, no questions asked. The only person that could make a catch up it is Micah Hyde to me. Other than that, I don't really think anybody else is in the mix. I mean, I guess throw Aaron Donald in there because he's always somehow in there, and I'm sure he'll figure out a way to have an elite year. But right now, Diggs is playing out of his mind. If he continues on this trajectory, he'll break a record. Even if he slows down, he's still going to have an amazing year.
Mm. And I guess for the MVP, Brandon, who do you have as the front runner for MVP a quarter way through the season right now?
My guy.
Mac
I
Jones?
got my guy. TB12. He's playing at an elite level. He's at least a decade older than everybody else on the field. And he's showing the young pups how it is. He is balling out. He's averaging 3 touchdowns a game. He's got the lowest interceptions. And he's not just dinking and dunking like he made a career off of in New England. He's chucking the ball down the field and making it work. So I've got TB12. I think he's playing the absolute best of any player. And I think the thing that gets overlooked in the MVP race very often is the intangible part of being a leader in the locker room. One of the things that Tom Brady has that nobody else has is the Tom Brady effect. Wherever he goes, people want to play with him. So they will do things like take less money to make sure that there is a full elite roster. And they will do things like work harder at practice. Nobody wants to be the guy that loses the game for Tom Brady at this point in his career. So I think he carries a lot of intangibles that makes everyone around him play better. I don't think that gets looked into in the MVP because it's hard to measure. Obviously, it's an intangible, but both from a stats perspective and the fact that he can literally get anybody to buy into his system, he's without a doubt the MVP so far.
Jin, do you agree? Do you think Tom Brady is the clear cut favorite for MVP, or do you see someone else in the race?
I can see Dak being the MVP. Just like Brandon talked about leadership and everything like that. Because at the end of the day, the MVP is not just about stats. I know that Dak is not going to throw up, all the best stats in the world, but he is coming back from an injury and he is balling out. And Tom Brady is, sitting in the pocket, throwing to all his receivers, not doing anything, outside the pocket, not trying to, do anything super exciting. It's all about just throwing, throwing, throwing. This week he has the prop bet on Tom Brady to rush is 1.5 yards. 1.5 yards. You could literally walk that in a game for Tom Brady, but I don't think he's gonna hit it. So it's if we're talking about everything amalgamated together, I got Dak for sure.
You could probably walk it faster too. He's always been slow, and in his old age, he's not getting any faster. I like Dak's leadership. I think has he already won Comeback Player of the Year? Should we just give that award to him now? Like, there's nobody else that stands a chance to win that.
He definitely is gonna get it.
But I don't think he'll clean 2 awards, so I think you got to give the edge to the old man.
Yeah.
No, this might be the year where you can win 2 at the same time.
That being said, Roger Goodell does hate Tom Brady. So that could factor in as well.
Yeah.
Hey, let's just hope Tom Brady didn't send any weird or harassing emails about Roger Goodell during his times.
Now, Tom's smart enough to do it on his personal phone. We all remember back to Deflategate when Tom Brady was the scapegoat of that whole scenario. He refused to turn over his personal device in an investigation, so he's smart enough to keep it all on his personal phone and to not give his personal phone to the NFL. So I think we should be covered there. I do think that Tom Brady and Roger Goodell potentially hate each other, and so that could bar some issues. But I think he stands a good chance to win MVP if he plays the same way he has been.
44 and MVP. God damn. who 10 years ago, 5 years ago, would you have thought a 44-year-old would win, has a chance at least to win the MVP in the NFL? I certainly wouldn't have thought so.
People have been calling for him to fall off a cliff since 2016.
Yeah, Max Kellerman is still waiting on the top of that hill, swearing that it's a slow decline or it's going to be a quick, hard drop. Max Kellerman, hope he brought a blanket, man, because it's getting cold at the top of that hill. This brings us to the end of our show. Hope you guys had an amazing time listening to it. For our premium bets this week, check us out on IG at underratedftfw. Once again, that is underratedftfw. And subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts. And make sure you leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts as well. It's been a great time. And until next week, enjoy the rest of the week, guys.